to grow and expand into who they are becoming because we're becoming platinum.
Man, I'm motivated now. See, got the motivation going. Okay.
Yes. Welcome to Platinum Conversations in the Platinum Cafe. Today, we wish to engage you on a journey of enlightenment and hopefully growth that will propel you into higher levels of attainment in the thing that's meaningful to you in your life. Let's go.
Back with the segments. Famous quotes you didn't know about famous people.
Show you right. And one of my favorites is I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired by Fannie Lou Hamer. I didn't know for the longest time that she was the originator of that quote, and that she was actually being interviewed on CBS, maybe I think it was 60 Minutes, and she was so articulate in her approach to the plight of people of color in the United States that the United States government was even afraid of the impact she would have. And from the presidential office, they interrupted and had a national announcement from the president at the same time she was being interviewed live to limit her impact. And so that just goes to show you the power of what we call lesser known people on a movement that could change humanity in the course of history.
People that just got sick and tired of the same.
Yes.
Sick and tired of stagnation. That's one of the things that it made me really think about, as we were sharing our stories in the previous segment. It's like, you get tired of the same old, same old. You get tired of the status quo. You get tired of seeing it being upheld and unfairly representing yourself. And you have to make a change. And that's kind of where that initiative comes in. The initiative comes in, you start looking around, okay, what can we do different? How can I stand out? How can I make my situation better, right? And it reminds me of another quote by Carter G. Woodson, where he said, in the long run, there is no discrimination against superior talent. And when you get sick and tired of the status quo, you will find ways to raise your game to the platinum level.
I agree. And, when I look at something that I'm personally sick and tired of, I'm sick and tired of individuals within our own communities talking about each other and bringing each other down for the purpose of elevating themselves. And one of the things, for instance, because I'm adjunct in faculty for some classes or what have you, one of the students made the comment, all of these using the N-word ain't ish. And so the brothers jumped in, well, no, all these sisters ain't ish or what have you. So they're going back and forth to put one another down because they've had a bad experience with someone that they cared about, and therefore they paint a blanket picture over everybody. And so one of the things that we have to learn to do is to separate the person from the experience. And how do we learn as a people to collectively elevate one another as opposed to using opportunities of hurt to bring one another down? Because when we generally go out and hurt people, it's because we've been hurt.
That's another quote, hurt people, hurt people.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you find the wherewithal within yourself to elevate to the higher perspective when you are sick and tired of being hurt? And it made me think, like, one of the things is like fatigue. Fatigue will make you compromise. When you're sick and tired of being hurt or being treated in a certain way, it's so easy to fall back into, oh, these ends ain't ish,
Right.
or these ain't ish. It's so easy to fall back into that. But my question to you, Rob, how do you elevate to the higher perspective when you are sick and tired? How do you fight off the fatigue of just being sick and tired and not give in to compromise and just rise above?
Right. Well, that requires intentionality. I'll give you an example of sometimes, especially because I'm from Louisiana, and I have this picture in my mind of individuals who have become tired of being impoverished or tired of being in a bad situation, how they would just take the clothes on their back. I can just see someone walking down the street just packing a sack lunch or what have you, putting their stick over their shoulders, and then they just leave. They leave because they have to set out for something greater. They know that there's more to the world than the experiences they've been having. And so because they are tired of the poor conditions in which they live in, they embark upon a journey of self-discovery, and they develop the courage to step out and do what people say is unthinkable, which is leave the comfort of home. But sometimes we find that the comfort we're in is really the hell we're living. And so they step out of hell by stepping into a new reality that they can create an existence that is wholly separate from what they've been accustomed to. And that gives them a new perspective, because now they can see the world with different eyes and bring to it their authentic selves versus the self that has been conditioned to think a certain way.
Preach, brother. And so can you talk about how Fannie Lou Hamer applied that quote to that same principle that you just spoke about?
Well,
to impact the movement that she was about?
yes, because she was basically a forerunner for the kings of the world and some of the other persons that were coming up, because she dared to speak out about the injustices that she saw with people who are being marginalized within the black community. And she became that voice of reason, that voice of purpose, and that voice of intentionality, because she put herself at risk for the greater good. And that whole journey that she was on was really to uplift the consciousness of a nation to see the atrocities of the ways in which we were treating one another, and create a platform for equality, a platform for justice for all, a platform for human decency and how we interact with one another, and to not look at one another as being other than, but the same as.
One of the quotes that always stands out to me, Brother Frederick Douglass, in so many words said, "Education is power."
Yes.
And so one of the things that I'm personally sick and tired of is the significant achievement gaps between white students and students of color in our educational system. You guys want to talk about and touch on how this idea of talent and can overcome the fatigue and the sick and tired feeling in the education system, and how some of these front runners, can you give us some quotes on how some of these front runners really make space for us to maneuver within the system?
Well, I can say one of the quotes I think about immediately is, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. You know, there's some people that have been born with advantages that just come into the system. They got generations behind them that are telling them how to move, telling them how to handle themselves and carry themselves, who to talk to. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you got students that are coming in blind, basically. They spent their whole senior year of high school figuring out, man, how am I going to get into college? But they never really figured out, how am I going to pay for college and how am I going to graduate? And so by the time that they got in there, they were so consumed with getting in, so stressed about getting in, so fatigued from just trying to get in there, that by the time they got in, they didn't really think about how they're going to survive in this new environment and how they're going to get out. And so then it really comes down to, man, I got all this hard work, but I don't necessarily have this talent. And so it's just a matter of continuing to press in with the hard work, but not just working hard, but also working smart, right? And so having people that have been through the trial already, or been through college, so to say, that are willing to come back and help them out to say, look, this is how I did it. This is how I applied myself in this situation, and this is what you need to do in order to make it through.
Wow. And as I look at, and I'm thankful that you brought up the whole idea of education and opportunity gaps, or equity gaps, I should say, in terms of the educational framework that we're under. And one of the things I'm very much aware of is the inequitable aspect of what education provides for us versus what it provides for others, because it starts with the underlying premise or understanding that the educational system under which we function and operate was not designed for us, with us in mind, and we are not a positive part of that narrative. And so when we learn the history of who we are and look at who those historical forerunners were in terms of black thought or ethnic thought and ethnic studies, what did they bring to the table? I'm reminded of Francis Cress Welsing, who said, "I won't rest until black children are taught to see themselves as themselves." And that speaks to the narrative again. What is your understanding of who you've been to recognize and understand who you are so that you can develop a vision for who you will become? And so without those underpinnings of knowledge based or steeped in truth, we will never recognize what those things are. We're taught the very few things about black history, or we read an appropriated history, because the history or the greatness of people of color, even in the United States, just here, has been appropriated. When we read the story of the Three Musketeers, we tend to think that some person in France, some white person wrote that. That's a black man that wrote that. Wrote the story of the Three Musketeers, who became very famous. We don't look at the fact that the whole idea of the lawnmower or the stoplight itself was created by a black man. But all of these things were appropriated from us because we weren't given the legislative right to vote or to be recognized as a full citizen. And we're functioning under a constitution that considers us 3/5 of a man, and therefore only a whole man, a full man, can vote and have full rights and privileges of a citizen. And so when we look at the underpinnings of what we are taught about ourselves, then we are always functioning from a deficit model versus a model that says, "I am all that I'm created to be."
Platinum hitter protocol, baby.
Yeah.
Carter G. Woodson, he had another quote that said, "The mere imparting of information is not education." It's kind of like indoctrination.
Yes.
When you're talking about students of color who are coming into a system that was not necessarily designed for them to leave and become successful as their counterparts in, they're not necessarily being educated in the same way that their counterparts are being educated. Sure. They might be being educated to be indoctrinated. It's just like, we don't want you to become the leaders in the future. We want you to be the bottom. We don't want you at the top. We want you at the bottom. And so the information that we're giving you is information that's supposed to keep you at the bottom.
One of the things, especially as the educational piece or what have you, we don't really understand that we give great homage to a lot of the business people or the philanthropists in our nation or what have you, like for instance the Nelson Rockefellers of the world. But Mr. Rockefeller had a quote or statement in which he made about people of color, and I will paraphrase it because I don't have the direct quote in front of me, but it's in terms of, I'd rather not have a nation of learned people. I'd rather have a nation of workers, because he was looking at, okay, how can I perpetuate my wealth for the future generations of my family versus the upliftment. And mind you, this individual started the first board of education, but that education was, again, not designed for us.
And that made me think about, the way to get out of the system, is not by bucking the system. We can't just disregard and say, what, I'm not going to participate. This wasn't built for me. I'm not successful here. I'm out, right? We can't do that, because not only do you lose, but everybody on your team suffers from your withdrawal from the situation. And you can't let the fatigue make you want to just back out, right? And the only way to get out of it is to go through it. And so you need more energy in that instance. You need to push harder. You need to find more information that's going to help you go forward in that situation. I was talking to a student right before this meeting. I was talking to a student about getting a job, and I was giving her a resume and cover letter advice, and she was talking about her values and beliefs and the things that she wants out of life, and how her hobbies can help her on the job. And I told her, organizations don't hire people. People are diverse. People are all kinds of makeup and all kinds of backgrounds that they have, hobbies and things like that, and values and beliefs. But organizations don't hire people. Organizations hire employees. Organizations hire you based on a need that they have in their company. And you shucking that need and saying, I don't meet your need, but I got these hobbies and I got these values and these beliefs, that's not going to get you the job. And you not having a job is not going to feed your family. So the only way for you to get through this situation is to address that need that they have, that the organization has, and to say, this is how I meet your need. And now that I met your need, you need to reciprocate by paying me so that I can help my family. But by withdrawing from the situation, you're not helping anybody.
Whew. Lord have mercy.
Most people who want to aspire to something greater than themselves, oftentimes they don't have the tools to help them shift their thinking to get there. As platinum hitters, we have a set of tools that we can help individuals to really optimize and shorten that time of learning so that they can become their optimal best in a shorter period of time. And so utilizing these platinum tools and following the platinum way, it basically says that when I'm mentored by a platinum hitter, I've identified someone who's the very best, they're at the pinnacle, or they're heading towards the pinnacle in their chosen field, and they're bringing me along for the ride. And so I get a bird's eye view of what someone is doing in something that I'm interested in to help me become my best.
Yeah. So
I have not failed, but I've only found hundreds of ways things don't work. And so when we're able to reframe what we call as a failure as a way something doesn't work, then we don't have the negative connotation of what society deems as a what quote unquote failure. Because some of the biggest failures in our lifetime have become multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Look at all of the things created by 3M and G and some cars and all of these electronics. They have started out making something else, but they couldn't achieve that particular thing. But something else came out of it as a result of the innovation that went into it. And so don't discount what other people perceive as a failure in your life. You look at it as a way in which that particular thing did not work. And now you elevate your thinking to think beyond what didn't work to what can work.
yeah, a lot of times we'll just overcorrect and cancel it.
Yes.
You know, overcorrect and just cancel it on ourselves. A lot of times we give up on ourselves before it's really time to
Yes.
give up on the idea.
Exactly.
Necessarily.
Exactly. And the other piece of that, I believe, is understanding that as we are looking for opportunity, opportunity is looking for us. And so at what point what we're looking for finds us and we converge. Are you prepared for that convergence?
Preparation.
And so for platinum hitters, we have to have a platinum experience with our opportunities. And so when the opportunity comes, how are we preparing to receive it? And do we have a big enough bucket to hold it?
Man, faith is a position of expectation.
Yes.
You got to be prepared for what you're expecting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared for the growth.
Yes.
Be prepared to receive the thing that you're looking for.
Right.
You know, because you can find yourself out of position.
Exactly.
You know, if you're asking for something, but you're not in a position to receive it.
Right. And that's a great analogy or what have you for looking at being out of position. I'll give it to you in this fashion. Let's say that you are standing in the middle of you're standing on a roadway or on the side of a road, and a car passes you by and it almost hits you. And you would say, man, they almost hit me. And so sometimes your opportunities are that same way. You are close enough to it where it almost hits you, but it goes right past you because you're not in position. And so as a platinum hitter developing a platinum mindset, we want to give you the ability to, or help you frame the ability to get in the way of your opportunities. And when you get in the way of it, it has no option and no opportunity to go around you. It has to hit you. It has to hit you full frontal. And so when you receive it, you just bear hug. You bear hug your experience and you embrace the opportunity. And when you embrace the opportunity, it becomes part of you. And you begin to have, again, a platinum experience like no other. And so when you encounter me and I encounter you, there has to be change that takes place in that moment. Because if it doesn't, I haven't brought my platinum self to the meeting. And so every place I go, I'm bringing the platinum way. I'm living the platinum way. I'm having a platinum experience along with you. Because the elevation of platinum is not just about me, the individual. It's about us, the collective.
It's about everybody.
Yes.
Man. As you were talking about being in the way of your opportunities, I got the visual of Superman stopping a train.
Yes.
He stands on those tracks, hands on his hips.
Yes.
And he's staring down the tracks. He's looking at the train coming.
Right.
Train is coming, and he just, bears down.
You're not going to get past me.
Nope.
Exactly. No. And that's what we have to learn to say to our future. I'm not going to let my future pass me by. I'm not going to let my greatness pass me by. I'm not going to let this platinum relationship pass me by. I'm going to get in the way of it so that it has no choice but to get to me. Not savory, or it's just not as the other substance or what have you. So what I find is that when we mix faith with fear, our faith is contaminated. And so therefore, you can only go so far with contaminated faith. It may work for a minute, but it won't get you far. It won't get you to the finish line or what have you. And so now you have to have a cleansing. You have to have a flushing out of the fear of the thing that's contaminating your faith so that you can believe wholeheartedly, believe 100%. Because faith is about being sold out. Faith is about believing. And how I describe faith of when it talks in terms of the definition of it in scripture, where it says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. What I attribute that to is that even when we're in a court of law, they build a body of evidence to prove their point and or position. And so when we're living our lives, we should build a body of evidence that show God is real in all of these areas of our lives or what have you. So when I start to analyze how I've been blessed, that's evidence of God's presence in my life, bringing me out of situations, covering me in other situations, providing a way out of other situations. And so when I look at the body of evidence, my faith should be strong in all things because of what he's already done. And so that's how I look at that.
Because of what he's already done.
Yeah.
I was reading this book called The Game of Life by Florence. First name Florence. I don't know the last name. And in the book, she tells, or at least the person who reads the book is a woman, so I have to say she. But in the book, she talks about, this church member who was praying for a new china set, needed utensils and whatnot. And they had somebody in the church was like moving, and they gave her just a small set, not a full set, but just a small like plate, like one setting, like a plate, cup, fork, spoon, knife, bowl, and she kept that. And she said, "This is the signs of the full set, which is going to come." So she accepted that plate, even though it wasn't everything that she was praying for or needed or wanted. She took that as a sign, and put her faith in that. Like this is substance. This is evidence right here. This is physical evidence that what I need is coming. It's not here yet, but it's on the way. And it's like, you can see rain clouds when they form, like, okay, rain is coming. And God always talks about signs and seasons. And
yes, he does.
He always gives a sign. Before the season hits, there's always something to let you know that what's coming.
But in that also tells us that, especially when you talk about seasons or what have you, and yes, we're definitely in seasons. And so one of the things that I really believe in is that for every seasonal change, there should be a preparation. And so the question becomes for us, how are we preparing for the season that is on the way? Because seasons follow a pattern. You got spring, summer, winter, and fall. And so we're in the summer moving into the fall. And so there are preparations that you do and certain actions that you take to prepare for the fall. And once you're in the fall, you have a certain amount of time to prepare for winter. And when winter comes, you know that whatever storms come, you're ready for it or what have you. And so life is the same way. And so it becomes for us, how do we analyze what season of life are we in? Are we in a season of plenty? Are we in a season of lack? Are we in a season of abundance? Are we in a season of favor? Are we in a season of grace? Are we in a season of forgiveness? So all of these different things are different seasons. And sometimes those seasons overlap. But they overlap by virtue of us preparing for what's on the way. We want to avoid the work because we don't want to go through the pain. We want to avoid having the conversation because we don't want to get into an argument. We want to avoid doing this thing because it's going to expose something else. And so avoidance becomes one of those enemies that kill our potential in terms of becoming who we need to be. And so if we learn to stop avoiding and just face it, and stop justifying the things that we're doing to avoid, to continue to avoid, because justification and avoidance are twins. And they're pulling against one another, moving in the same direction. And so what we have to learn to do is to put justification to the left, put avoidance to the right, and we remain centered on our goals.
What does your life start to look like when you stay centered on your goals? You stop avoiding, you start working on yourself. What does your life look like as a result of those changes?
Right. And so then, because that leads back to, again, to that vision. What do you see yourself becoming? Who do you see yourself as, and why? Because it's one thing to have a vision, but another thing not to know why you have that vision. And so we have to learn to create the narrative of our why. And your why has to be compelling enough that will make your vision possible.
All right, y'all. Well, we're going to wrap it up right here. This has been another fabulous episode of the Platinum Hitter Podcast. If you want to hear more inspiring messages and great content, be sure to check us out on www.platinumhitter.com, on all major social media websites at Platinum Hitter. And if you want to stay connected or contact us directly, you can text PH to 31996. Until next time, make it platinum.
Have a platinum day, family.